Welcome into Payton's Play, the podcast that merges sports betting and sports media. I'm Meghan Payton. It's championship weekend in the NFL, which means we've got all the stats, knowledge, picks, pros for this weekend coming up. We've got our pro NFL Network's analytics expert, Cynthia Frelund, is going to be joining us. I'm so excited to get her take on all of these games and these prop bets that we're going to be looking at. I've got a couple thoughts of my own. I'm a little bit sad, though, because championship weekend means that we only have 2 more weeks left of football, only one more game, which is the Super Bowl. We're going to be switching to NBA, though, so don't worry, Payton's Play is not going anywhere. Let's talk championship weekend. Let's get into some picks. The Cincinnati Bengals head to Arrowhead Stadium to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. They're no stranger to this stadium. The Bengals have won 3 times in a row to the Kansas City Chiefs. So you've guessed it right. I'm taking Bengals money line here. I was just talking with my producer, Eric, before we started the show. This line movement has been absolutely nuts. The line opened with Chiefs as a 3-point favorite. The Bengals were a favorite at one point, and now the Chiefs are minus 1.5. Here's the thing. No one knows exactly how healthy Patrick Mahomes is. He's dealing with that high ankle sprain. But my thought is, if you like Cincinnati at all, I think you're getting a little bit of an advantage right now. You can get them at plus 120. And I like what Cincinnati's doing. They're so hot right now. 10 wins in a row for the Bengals. Joe Burrow and this offense is insane. He's moving the ball down the field with lots of different weapons. He's using T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, and Hayden Hurst. These are all players that are utilized in different ways, and Joe Burrow's finding ways to connect with him. Not to mention, the offensive line was a concern. We had Andrew Whitworth on here last week talking about the concerns with their 3 starting offensive linemen out. What did we learn? They were fine. Joe Mixon rushed for over 100 yards with 3 backup offensive linemen in. I'm not worried about this. And Burrow's going to get the ball out quicker, which means that we could see even more plays designed that are short yardage, short passes. I'm going to get into some props that actually match that style of play. But I like Bengals here. I mean, I understand the Chiefs are a fantastic team, and it's hard to bet against Patrick Mahomes, but that high ankle sprain, as much as we want to spin it, twist it, whatever video you're seeing on Twitter, he's still dealing with a high ankle sprain. I mean, he gets hit once. He's going to be dealing with it a little bit more than Joe Burrow would be if he was going to get hit. I like Burrow here. I like the Bengals. Take Bengals money line. You can get it in plus money right now. I'm not sure how much more this line's going to move. I like it. Let's switch over to the NFC side. This one's been a little bit harder for me. We've got the Niners headed to Philadelphia taking on the Eagles. I like the Niners here. I've been rolling with the Niners for the last few weeks, so it's kind of hard for me to go back on this. You can get the Niners at plus 130. So I'm taking 2 underdogs in the championship weekend. I don't know if that's a terrible sign. Maybe you want to go completely against me, but San Francisco has the most complete team by all means, by all measures. They've got an elite defense, and they've got such an efficient offense. This explosiveness that they're seeing in their offensive weapons. We've said it so many times, but George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, I mean, Brandon Ayuk, this is a team that's built to go into the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy is doing well through the air. But guess what? Here's an interesting kind of aspect that I'm looking at for the NFC Championship. Could Brock Purdy run the ball a decent amount? He could get some yards on his feet. He's got speed. He's got elusiveness. We haven't seen it a ton, but he hasn't had to do it a lot. And the Niners are going to be going up against an Eagles defense that's better at shutting down the pass than they are the run. So run the ball, guys. You've got the best guys in Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell. Deebo Samuel can run the ball too. If the Niners get a ground game going early on, I expect them to win this game. I'm going to stay away. I say don't do the spread. If you like the Niners, take the money line, because if the Eagles are able to get a ground game going, then yeah, they might win this game, and it's probably not going to be a 2.5-point game. It'll probably be a 7-point game. If you like Niners here like I do, ride with San Francisco money line and get it at plus 130. All right, now time to talk a little bit of player props to back up some of these bets that we have. I promise I'm not contradicting myself. The first prop bet that we're looking at is an Eagles offensive player, quarterback Jalen Hurts, over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I never said that the game wasn't going to be close. I think the Eagles are going to put up points. I think the Eagles are going to get a lot of yards, especially through the air. This is another week that Jalen Hurts is healthy. This is another week that Jalen Hurts gets to show that he's an efficient quarterback. He's an accurate quarterback. He's not a player that can just run. He can throw the ball. And he's going to be going up against a Niners pass defense that's 20th in the league. All season, we've talked about the San Francisco run defense, what they're able to do on the ground, stopping the run. They're second in run defense. So if I'm Philadelphia, my game plan is going to be use my receivers, use my quarterback who can throw the ball and get points on the board through the air. They've got incredible receivers, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, tight end Dallas Goedert. They have enough weapons for Jalen Hurts, not to mention these receivers are getting yards after the catch. Points are going to get up on the board. I don't care how great these defenses are. We're going to see points. And I think we'll see points with Jalen Hurts throwing the ball. So take over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. We do have to give a Niners bet here. And I know this is the most basic bet we could ever say, but Christian McCaffrey, anytime touchdown, -130. That's the best number I've seen. And I get it. It's not going to be plus money because it's Christian McCaffrey. He's had a touchdown in the last 8 games. He's had a touchdown in 10 of the last 12 games. Kyle Shanahan finds so many ways for McCaffrey to get into the end zone. He can go out there as a receiver. He can go in short yardage as running back. If there's one player that I'm going to bet on to get a touchdown in this one, it's Christian McCaffrey. I know right now he's been missing a couple practices, dealing with injuries. I think he's going to be fine. And if anything, this might get his number up a little bit. So keep an eye on this one. I would at some point make sure to take McCaffrey anytime touchdown. And then one prop bet that I'm going to look at for the AFC side of things, let's look at Bengals running back Samaje Perine over 15.5 receiving yards. This is one of my favorite ones because the Bengals' approach this week is going to be quick passes, short yards. I think that they're going to use the running backs in the receiving game a lot. So you can look at Joe Mixon here. I like Samaje Perine. His over hit last week. He had 31 receiving yards against the Bills. Running backs are going to get involved in the passing game, going up against a Chiefs defense that hasn't been so solid at stopping running backs as receivers. They're 28th in the league as far as passing yards allowed for running backs. We've looked at Joe Mixon before. We've eyed his receiving yards. I think the sports books are on to him a little bit more than they are on to Perine. Mixon's under hit for receiving yards last week. Perine's over hit. I like over 15.5 for Samaje Perine this year. All right, those are our prop bets. Let's talk to a real expert, though. That is NFL Network's analytics expert, Cynthia Frelund, joining us now as our pro. Cynthia Frelund, thank you so much for joining Payton's Play. We are so lucky to have you. How are you today?
You know, I'm just got out of the shower because when we were doing this, my dog, I have a puppy, and he decided to throw up a sock. So I apologize for, we're a little like, we're making it happen here because the wet hair is always not the best, but I apologize. The dog's health has to come first,
Hey, we're in Southern California. It's beach hair. All the Northerners are jealous because we can go outside right now and go into the ocean. I'm so happy that you're coming on. I know your life gets super crazy with NFL playoffs happening, championship weekend. I've always loved you. I think that you're the first person in this industry to make numbers cool and to really give a unique way and a unique perspective to analyzing the game. So for all those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today, which is a star on NFL Network.
I appreciate that, but I'll give you your 10% later. But look, I mean, I was a banker, an investment banker for many years. I went to business school. I have a very untraditional path. I worked in the league office. So back in 2008 for my business school summer, that will tell you how old I am, but whatever. I was a baby in business school. But during my summer between business school first and second year, I worked on a couple of projects, some that have just come to light. One being bringing 2 teams to LA, one being a 17-game season, another being adding what's the optimal number of games in a season. So we did a whole big financial model on, is it 16-4, like it had been forever, 17-3, et cetera, which is where we have netted out now. But I got a chance to meet a bunch of the coaches that are on the competition committee and really got a chance to sit with them and understand how much fun it is to sit in a dark room. They swear a lot and they go through plays. Super happy and you get to eat snacks, and it was really intriguing for me. So I think at first I thought I would do something maybe in cap or league finance, but then I learned how to code. I taught myself how to code, and I added a master's of predictive analytics as well. And in doing so, I realized like I could like see this a little bit different. And that was the time where Moneyball and baseball was becoming more and more interesting. And all of these coaches on the competition committee who I had forged trust with by working with them on these other projects, they were like, let's see if we can do this for football. And so we just kind of married the two. And then fast forward a number of years, Paul DePodesta got hired by the Browns, and I was at ESPN, and they're like, "We want to try," and yes. And then DraftKings was there, and you just say yes, and then somehow you end up, I don't know. Then somehow you end up back at NFL Network because NFL is my home, and I prefer NFL football to any other sport, and I love doing analytics for NFL. So that's kind of how we got here. That's a really long story. Sorry.
No, that's it just gives us a little bit of an insight of this is one of the smartest minds in the NFL, Cynthia. It really is true. And it's cool to hear your perspective. Now, it's funny, whenever I started this podcast, the goal of it is to merge traditional sports media with sports betting. Sports betting's been huge lately. I've gotten into it more, and different networks you're seeing talk about it, even on Game Day View. You guys start to talk a little bit about like props and players, and how has your model shifted or your approach shifted as the betting industry has gone up?
Well, the funny part is that for a long time, a number like there's it's not dissimilar how models like my model or anyone's model. That's how lines get set. So people sometimes get mad
Yeah.
at me that my numbers are close to where the betting lines are, and I'm like, that's like good. I don't look at theirs first. Like I
Right.
do mine. Like I have, how TV works. You have to send in your information. Like Monday night, I'm up until like whatever time. So I send them when the same time the lines are. I don't have time to look at where they move to, whatever. So long story short, those things are kind of similar to how it's always been run, and like it's prevailing theories of like what this type of defense does against this type of offense. So every snap, I tie mine all to first down. So your likelihood of earning a first down or touchdown, your likelihood of stopping a first down or touchdown on defense, and then how that relates to points, be they field goals or be they like a full touchdown. So the betting world and the analytics world they're kind of the same. It's just how you use and
Right.
implement data.
But that's what's great is just to see how much it impacts the game. And people always say Vegas is so good, and that's why you're great at what you do. How about like DVOA? Do you look at that a lot? Does that match your model to some degree?
So I think that's like, so the funny part is DVOA is a good insight into like what types of things go into my model. I have a hard time using other people's stuff. I mean, next gen stats, I
Right.
will put in there just not because I don't think it's great, but because I've been doing this for such a long time that adding that in, maybe it double counts something that I already have in mind. So I have my own versions of like DVOA or EPA and it's awesome. I
Right.
love looking at those. I think it's great to look at the various ways people are looking at it because just like being an investment banker, like the guy from Citigroup, he could make a better investment than the guy from Goldman Sachs. Like, why wouldn't I look at all of the information to see kind of who's doing better, where I can make my own stuff better? I don't want to recreate theirs because I already have mine, right? So it's like I do look at
Exactly.
that. I vet mine to see where I rank against PFF or like all of those different various topics to see like who's right and who's wrong. Because at the end of the day, they're all just like the best educated guess we can get. It's never perfect, right? The
Yeah.
27th ranked DVOA team against the third ranked. Sometimes the 27th ranked one wins in one metric, right? You don't. It's not
Right.
perfect. It's just characterizing a better guess. Like where are you taking a better probability shot?
Exactly. Well, in a world of sports betting, in a world of fantasy football, everyone wants to get insights. Everyone wants that winning edge. And I rely a lot on different handicappers that I work with, or I rely on what I read on your articles or what I watch on NFL Network. So let's get into championship games because we've got two ones that, from an outsider perspective, that just has an NFL background. I mean, these are two or four teams that are really close. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if any of these teams ended up winning the Super Bowl. Now, I just was on here a little bit ago talking about I have Bengals and Niners as my pick, and that's just based on somewhat gut feeling, some of the stats that I've seen. You have Chiefs as a 28.9% chance to win the Super Bowl, which is the highest out of the four teams. Break down a little bit of what you've seen and what's playing into that.
Well, first, I think you're totally right. I do think we like got to the right four teams somehow, right? Like
Right.
maybe you could argue the Bills. However, after last week, I don't know, maybe they did run out of gas or whatever it was that Roger Saffold said, but I think we did get to the right team. So either way, any combination left, I think is going to be an awesome Super Bowl. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you add the two AFC Super Bowl probabilities together, they're number one and number two, which means the AFC is stronger than the NFC. I don't think people would argue that necessarily either, right? So while I have a very close game forecast between the Chiefs and the Bengals, I do have a slight edge for the Chiefs. I would, to be perfectly honest, I was actually surprised in part because I do think that those three offensive linemen being gone, I know it didn't seem like it was a big deal against the Bills. I think like what happened was is last week we were way over here thinking, oh, they're done for, like they whatever, and now we're like, oh, Joe Burrow doesn't even need an O-line, let's just put him out there without one, right? Like, so I think that there's
Right.
somewhere in between, and I think that where Chris Jones rushes from, and by the way, he has more interior pressures this season than Aaron Donald, which it's kind of a asterisk there because Aaron Donald's still the best at his position, but he and that team was not so great and he had some injuries, whatever. But Chris Jones is right up there, and rushing from that position is going to be a lot tougher to complete those ridiculous Joe Burrow under pressure passes. Where someone pressures you from does matter. And I do know that they do give up like some nice deep plays, and their downfield passes, so 10 plus air yard pass balls, that defense does. They have the second highest passer rating allowed. But you also put an asterisk there because in a lot of games, they've been playing with a significant lead when those deep passes have happened. So it's like a prevent defense where like, let's let them catch it and not let them get the first down, right? 3rd and 17, get them 14
Right.
yards. It doesn't matter, right? So those are the
Yep.
types of things that are interesting. So to me, it's a razor thin margin, and just the number of injuries for the Bengals that has, because by the way, we forget about that Chidobe Awuzie hasn't been playing for a long time, but Cheeto is their best corner. And now we're like in the big boy leagues, right? Like there are so many pass catchers. Like Patrick Mahomes has thrown a touchdown to the most different receivers this season. And I
Yeah.
understand Travis Kelce's the best one, but there's still other ones that are great too.
So, how about Patrick Mahomes, though? Because the storyline this week is the high ankle sprain, and this is why we've seen this line move so significant. It opened with Chiefs -3. We saw Bengals favored at one point. Now it's back to Chiefs -1.5. How does his high ankle sprain affect your model and how you see this game going?
Well, the good news for Chiefs fans is that it's been Andy Reid with over a week to figure this one out, right? So the
Right.
reality is it's one thing if it happens in the middle of the game. It's another thing like they now know like there are contingency plans, and there's plan B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So there's not just kind of plan A, B, C, which is what maybe they would have gone into it with. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we all close our eyes and think about Patrick Mahomes as this guy who's absolutely electric on extended plays, extended dropbacks, 4
Yeah.
second or more passes, because he is. But also, he's the guy who's thrown the most touchdown passes from a clean pocket too, meaning his O-line has actually helped him out quite a bit. So it's not just we think about it's maybe like the same thing as that O-line, right? Like we think about it, we're like Patrick needs to run, and like it's true he does, but
Right.
also maybe he doesn't, right? Like they've got the plays in the playbook, and you have to give Andy Reid credit for the play construction and call that would get him like those running backs will be used creatively. That I can assure you. Jerick McKinnon will catch some passes, and he'll be used to stop the blitz, right? That's me in pass protection as Jerick McKinnon. Not good.
Yes.
But yeah, so he'll be used in that way. And Isaiah Pacheco will run the ball. So, we've seen Andy Reid be an expert play caller with the run game as well. And it doesn't need to be like this run game that looks like Saquon Barkley. It just needs to be a run game that, especially on base downs, keeps them out of 3rd and long or 3rd and obvious passing situations.
Yeah, if there's one offensive mind that we're not going to, go against, it's Andy Reid, and that's why, uh, as I listen to you, Cynthia, I'm already second guessing my picks here. Isaiah Pacheco had an insane game. He's a player that I've been looking at a little bit. I almost took his over on his rushing yards because, man, was Vegas off on that one last week. He had over 80 rushing yards. Isaiah Pacheco's been great, and this is a lot of credit to Andy Reid. This is going to be a close one. Bengals, Chiefs. Right now, Chiefs -1.5. Let's switch over to the NFC side, though. Niners, Eagles. I'm taking San Francisco here, partly because I said San Francisco like 4 weeks ago. So I'm like, I can't change it. I'm like riding with my gut here. And they do have a very complete team. I mean, the defense is elite. The offensive weapons are in George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, we could do a whole series on just the Niners offense. How are you approaching this one, though? Because the Eagles are favored here.
So you talk about Andy Reid. We also need to talk about Kyle Shanahan, because Kyle Shanahan, I mean, what he's been able to do with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy and like all the different changes that have happened to this team. And by the way, bringing in Christian McCaffrey, which is an elite offseason move, like Kyle Shanahan, like hats off, like all of the offensive architecting, incredible. It does help to have that defense and like those players, but listen, you still got like how many people could get, there's a reason that, no rookie quarterback, let alone the last pick in the draft, has ever made it to a Super Bowl, has ever won a conference championship. Right. Like hats off to him. One of the things that and I'm totally with you, I'm very aligned on this one. I'm not going to say like I feel like awesome about it, because both of these teams could easily win, but I feel much more strongly that the Niners will win than I do about the Chiefs. I feel my convictions, my gut, if I have to say, which one I feel more, it's my gut feels more that this Niners team has the advantage, in part because of some of the things that we saw last week. If you look at empty sets, so when they have all the wide receivers on the line, and what happens is like it tips the quarterback off as to like, are they playing zone? Are they playing man?
Yeah.
And Brock Purdy, he needs the cheat sheet. By the way, I think a lot of like, I wouldn't be surprised if like third, fourth year quarterbacks could really benefit from a little bit more of a cheat sheet, but that really helps. And by the way, it only works if you have guys like the guys you just named, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, and of course that like death lineup they play where they have, two running backs where, Kyle Juszczyk just goes in there and just like breaks everyone's heart. So the reality is like, it's really smart crafting with how, this offense will work. And Avonte Maddox, Avonte Maddox he didn't play last game against the Giants. Now I could argue maybe it was an extra week of rest for him. I don't know, right? But Avonte Maddox not play, if he doesn't play for some reason, or if he's not 100%, that's going to change the complexion. If he plays, they're very good at play action defending play action when he's in. They're a lot more susceptible to it, if not. The linebacker level, targeting that level in the pass game with no Avonte Maddox in the lineup, that will be major advantage. Kyle Shanahan, chess master of moving all the pieces, right? But even if he's not 100%, the safety's not named CJ, whatever, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
CJ Gardner-Johnson. He has three names.
CJ. There we go. Got it. CJ, GJ. Got it. If he's not there, then anyone other than him, they've allowed 11 touchdowns, which by safety duo, that's the most. And of course, look, Blankenship's a rookie, so it's not like it's a bad thing, right? But the middle of the defense is where Kyle Shanahan loves to target. If that's not available to him or less available, it's going to look a lot different. Maybe more extended dropbacks, things like that. But I think those like the cover, when they're trying to figure out what the coverage is. So those coverage beaters, meaning, the empty set, the empty formations, and also the 21 lineup, their death lineup, which the Eagles haven't really faced a lot of in terms of volumes of snaps. That's going to be what, to me, that's what tipped me over the edge here.
Makes a lot of sense. I have a couple player props that I think align with how you've approached this. So it's time to look at, what does the analytics expert say about these player props? Cynthia Frelund, thoughts. My first player prop, going back to NFC, I like Jalen Hurts over 1.5 passing touchdowns. The reason I chose this was because we're looking at a healthier Hurts, a player that can be accurate, efficient. He can move the ball through the air. He's got awesome weapons. Not to mention he's going up against a Niners run defense that's second in the league. So I feel like the Eagles are going to have to do more in the passing game, and San Francisco's 20th pass defense. Are you riding with this one, or are you seeing something different here?
Totally aligned. If you look at that defense, they're like, for 3 seconds, if you're looking at extended dropbacks only for 3 seconds, that is an area where their corners are vulnerable. Like if they don't get the right pressure, and I do know that I love a good Jalen Hurts scramble moment and throw on the run to an A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown outmatches any of their corners. So I'm with you. So I think 2, easy peasy.
All right, we got 1. So if you were on the edge right now, Jalen Hurts, Cynthia Frelund agrees, go cash that one right now. You can still get it at plus money, plus 110 last time I checked. That was on FanDuel. All right,
It's
my
wild.
next prop bet I am taking is Christian McCaffrey anytime touchdown. This is a little bit more basic. It's minus 130, so you're not getting like a fantastic number here, but he's had 8 touchdowns in a row, 10 of the last 12 games. He's had a touchdown. You just mentioned how creative Kyle Shanahan is with this offense. I think they're going to find at least one way for him to get in the end zone. Are you riding with that one?
Completely. I actually think it's probably maybe like this much more likely that it is a receiving touchdown than a rushing touchdown, and only because like maybe targeting that linebacker. We talked about targeting that linebacker level in pass coverage. Like that is potentially where I mean Christian McCaffrey is an outmatch for even the best of linebacker, many of the best of linebackers, but that's one where I'm with you on that one. But what you could do is you could, not that I know anything about this because I haven't played the NFL, but if you put some things together, sometimes like in cooking, there's multiple ingredients. Like that could be
Yes, there
like
are.
butter. Like butter.
I
Like
mean, I don't know
what
what,
doesn't taste
yeah.
good with butter?
I mean, if you liked it and then you wanted to put it with something else, sometimes it just
Well,
makes it taste better. So a bigger payout. I don't know.
just
All right.
saying,
Cynthia
just saying,
Frelund, though, does
it's like
expect Christian
combining things.
McCaffrey.
Yep.
Combining things. Christian McCaffrey, anytime touchdown, dual threat guy. He's been fantastic this season with Kyle Shanahan. Great move for them during the season to acquire McCaffrey. All right, switch over to the AFC. One player prop that I'm looking at is running back Samaje Perine over 15 and a half receiving yards. Joe Mixon has been the talk this season about his involvement in the receiving game. He's had his worst rushing year, but his best year as a receiver. I've taken Mixon a few times. I've looked at that, but the unders hit the last few times with Mixon in the receiving game, but that's because the books are kind of onto it. Samaje Perine had 31 receiving yards against the Bills. The Chiefs, as you've alluded to, have not been fantastic at shutting down running backs in the passing game. Is this something that you would back?
Absolutely, because I told you that I think that the pressure in this game is going to be even more important and impactful. I think Chris Jones is coming for him. I think Frank Clark is coming for him. I think
Yep.
George Karlaftis is coming for him. And I do think that one of the things that you see when that happens are shorter passes. And Pirine, I actually think like Pirine, the difference between Pirine and Mixon is not as like big as people talk about. People talk about Mixon being so much better. I think Pirine's a really good running back as well.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Okay, great. So here's the great thing, guys. If you haven't like thought about what's going to go on for Super Bowl, whether it's betting or just you want to like tell something to your friends and act really cool, you've got Cynthia's approval on these 3 prop bets. Cynthia Frelund, the NFL Network's analytics expert. We so appreciate you coming on here at Peyton's Play as we attempt to merge sports betting and sports media. You are the first one to make numbers cool and important. I really appreciate your time. That wraps up this week's episode of Peyton's Play, Conference Championship Edition. Go cash some bets this weekend. Make sure if you have not already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, do the comments, do the notification. It really does help us out here. And we want to be able to do this every week, bring on many guests. Let us know, by the way, if there's any guests that you'd like to have come on the show. Go cash some bets. Happy football.